welcome everyone to our Trans Inquiry Power Training Series. This is our third um, power training series for this semester. This training is GSA FAM, Building Trust, Friendships, and Communities in GSAs. So it's just all about, how do you build a sense of community? How do you build friendships? How do you build trust within your GSA? And so hopefully we'll give you all some really great tools and skills to share, to take back to your GSA. A little bit about myself. My name is Tony Ortuño, Senior Statewide Organizer at GSA Network. My pronouns are he and him. Currently working from occupied Tongva land, also known as Los Angeles. If this is your first time viewing our videos, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Briefly about GSA Network, Genders and Sexuality Alliance Network. We are a next generation LGBTQ racial and gender justice organization that empowers and trains queer, trans, and allied youth leaders to advocate, organize, and mobilize an intersectional movement for safer schools and healthier communities. And really, we do that by organizing with GSA clubs, LGBTQ clubs, pride clubs, all across the country, across the state of California. And we also work with community partners who work with GSAs to also organize for change in the local community. So hopefully with today's training, you continue to gain some of those tools and skills that you can take back to your GSA, to your local community, to just continue the movement. And we're really excited to continue to be able to provide this opportunity for you all. For this particular objective, for this workshop, it's around learning activities to create peer-to-peer relationships and collaboration. So really, as you continue to organize with your GSA, what are some of those activities that you can do to kind of build those peer-to-peer relationships? And we're hoping that in this particular workshop, we'll be able to present some of that information. As a reminder, this is part one of 3 videos. So make sure that you get a chance to, once you finish up this first video, to check out part 2 for this community building, building trust, friendships amongst your GSA workshop. So as I mentioned, starting us off with community building. And so we just want to start off a little bit with some quick understanding of like what is community building. And so first, if we want to break it down, right, community refers to a group of people who are tied together by a common thread, which could include things like your identity, your experiences, maybe where you're located, or your values. In this case, it's your GSA at your school. That is kind of the community that you're building. There's different types of community as well. So it could be things like your friends, your family or chosen family. As I mentioned, in this case, it would be maybe your school, folks at school that you're building community with, or even community-based clubs or art spaces. So those are the types of communities that we're talking about. And then when we refer to community building, it's really talking about the ways that your community, right? So the people that you're with, the folks that you're in space with, the ways that you organize, that you create and you gather and you connect and you build understanding as a way to really just develop supportive relationships amongst one another. So essentially, it's kind of like, what is it that the group of people that you're with in one space, what is it that you're doing to kind of build relationships with one another? How are you building that community amongst each other? How are you getting to know one another? How is your GSA members getting to know one another? And so we're hoping that we're going to present a couple ideas around how you can really start to build community amongst your GSA club. So in this instance, when we talk about community building, we kind of talk about it also as different levels of community building. So for instance, level 1 would be something like I am, and it's all about like introductory practices that really just support creating a comfortable and safe space for your members, whether you're new or you're returning. It's all really kind of surface level engagement. So we'll get into some more specific examples, but we think about it, level 1 is more kind of like, maybe you're a new member and you're trying to feel out the space. So it's just like, what are those things as a new member that would make you feel comfortable? Level 2 is really a little bit more, is deeper. So you start to learn a little bit more about folks' views, personal views, their personal experiences. Here you might be able to share all of those different particular components of each other, but you really have to building that trust first, right? So those level 1 introductory community building activities would be really important. And then level 3 would be about building more trust and mentorship. So really talking about like, how do you build a culture of teaching one another different skills? How do you, share the different leadership roles within the group? How do you collaborate? And then how do you kind of build deeper relationships and not cliques within the club? And so again, we'll get into some examples of how folks can do that. And for this level, we want to emphasize that it's like super important because in the long run, we know that, your members will eventually graduate, and in order to sustain the club, to keep it going, we want to be able to start building those relationships with our members so that we can start to build like leadership pipeline with our younger folks who are coming up and want to be member leaders within our group. And so in order to do that, we want to start to build that trust. So just kind of thinking about that, right? That level 3 is really starting to think about, in order for us to build that trust and to build more leaders within our group. In order to build more leaders, we have to build that trust within our group. So kind of think about it in that way. Okay, so just getting to a little bit more specifics around the different levels of community building. As I mentioned, community level 1 is really like all those introductory surface level activities. And some of the things could include like making sure you come up with community agreements together, making sure you have check-in questions every day, every time you meet with your GSA. You can do activities like Jeopardy, Human Bingo, Two Truths, One Lie. You can also facilitate online games, things like Among Us, which have been really fun in the past, even with some of the groups that we've helped facilitate. When it's safe to do so, potentially going and hosting a group picnic or a cookout, hosting a movie night, even on Zoom, now that's totally doable. When it's safe to do so, also maybe going to Pride events, and different maybe art activities, like putting together a personal zine, or sending, if your club has funds to send out personal care packages, that would be really great, just to kind of show your members that you're thinking about them. If you're unsure of like how to facilitate some of these particular activities, you can definitely reach out to us and we can do our best to support in sending you the right resources to help you lead some of these activities. But these are just ideas. If you have other ideas already that you like to do within your group that you feel are kind of that, community building level 1, continue to do that. And I think those are really important activities that'll just, they're also really fun a lot of the times. And so you just, make sure that you continue to create that kind of safe, supportive space. If we think about, if you watched our previous videos, we talked about the different elements of a GSA. This is definitely one of those different components, right, around creating, gathering and supporting. It would be really great to continue those particular elements, and this contributes to that. So, right, so that's community level 1. Again, if you have any questions about what these particular activities, how you would facilitate them, you can definitely reach out to us, and we'll have our contact info at the end, should you have those questions. So now going into community level 2. So for community level 2, as I mentioned, it's more about getting to know folks' personal views and experiences. And one of the main activities that we use for GSAs for them to get to know each other and their views and their experiences and values is by forming what we call community circles. And so in community circles, it's really rooted in Indigenous traditions by which, you pass along knowledge or stories or traditions. And so because these practices have been used so often to share stories, we like to use them within GSAs and even in some of our own community spaces to really get to know one another, our stories, our experiences, our values, where we come from, who we are, what made us what we are, who we are. And so in order to do that, we form these community circles, right? And so this is actually a really great activity that you can facilitate with your GSAs. As I mentioned, the purpose of the circles have been rooted in Indigenous traditions. There are communities who actually also use the circles to resolve conflicts amongst communities, but really to build kind of a deeper understanding of if there was maybe some harm caused, like why was that harm caused, and then how can we hold each other accountable for what's happening within the community if harm was caused. And oftentimes it really supports in coming to a commitment and a solution. So there's different purposes for the circles overall, if anything, right? Different purposes for the circles. For GSAs, it's really a space where you get to kind of build friendships, get to know one another, get to know each other's stories. And some of the things to consider when forming the circle is to make sure to, you can form a physical circle with either chairs or your desk, depending on what the setup of your GSA meeting space looks like. And you want to, again, form a physical circle. You want to make space for folks to enter and exit. Should there be, maybe if it's like all chairs and your chairs are kind of right next to each other, you want to make sure that there's a space where folks can kind of enter and exit the circle. And then you also want to make sure you come up with, circle agreements. And the circle agreements can be similar to your community agreements, right? So it's like maybe one person sharing at a time. If you decide to use what we call like a talking piece, right? So maybe an item that is important, is of importance to someone, you can use that as a talking piece, and then that person would be kind of the one sharing, and you can also include things like, using I statements, so sharing your own personal experiences, right? And those are just some examples of circle agreements that you can use. If you already have community agreements within your group, you can also use those particular agreements to facilitate your community circle. So again, a community circle is forming a physical circle within your group setting. It could be your classroom or wherever it is that you all meet, but forming a circle, making sure that there's a space for folks to enter and exit, and then having your circle agreements. Now, in terms of what is it that you would talk about within your circle? So there's different topics that you can, facilitate for community circles. Some of those things include things like inclusivity discussions, right? So talking about folks' identities and how they're connected, what communities within our LGBT community are not represented, or also, how are we being inclusive of all races, genders, sexualities, abilities, class, and just other folks that maybe aren't here. So those are just some guiding questions to help you with maybe an inclusivity discussion. You can also host maybe monthly appreciation community circles where you get to go around and kind of share your appreciation for yourself, for each other, for things that you've done within your group. And this really just kind of honors what folks are contributing to the space, what you yourself are contributing to the space. And so monthly appreciation circles would also be an opportunity or a topic of discussion within a community circle. Uh, the last one is storytelling or resonance sharing. So for this one, really, it's about sharing your stories. Now, we'll get into resonance sharing and storytelling in part 2 of. Okay, so now for this last community building level, so level 3, as I mentioned earlier, right, for this particular community level, it's really about thinking about how do we start to build trust or continue to build trust amongst our members so that we can continue to build a leadership kind of pipeline. So, if we are maybe seniors in high school and we're graduating soon and we're GSA president, like who is going to kind of take on our role in the coming year or the coming years, right? Or who's going to take on our vice president role, et cetera, et cetera. And so we want to start to build that trust amongst our members and really get to know folks' interests and build a deeper understanding and build a deeper relationship with our members so that we can, so that the club can continue to make change happen for our LGBT youth on our schools. One of the ways that we help facilitate this particular process is by doing like femtorships or mentorships, right? And a really great activity that I have up here that's broken down is kind of what we call a one-to-one. Now, this particular activity, which is called again a one-to-one, it's really a conversation. It's a conversation that you hold with another peer, another member, to just like get to know them. They get to know you. You get to understand like what are their interests within the club. You get to share your motivations with them about why you're doing and leading the club. And so again, the one-on-ones really aim to kind of develop that relationship and identify folks' interests to see if like they would be a really good fit maybe to lead the club or if they would be interested in leading the club. You just get to know them kind of on a deeper level. And really, it's a conversation. So if anything, think about it like that, right? So it's a personal conversation you get to have between two people, usually between two people, right? And really get to know each other on a deeper level to find out what are folks' interests around leadership and, maybe bringing them in as potential future leaders within your group. So the way that the one-on-one is broken down in this case is first, you get a chance to introduce yourself, introduce your name, how long have you been part of the club or the group that you're in, and then give some context. So like explain the background of the conversation. Maybe you really do want to get to know them a little bit more and see if they're interested in being, a potential leader next school year. And, you can be upfront about that and you can let them know like, I'm trying to find out who would be interested in leading the group and just to see if this would be a good opportunity for you. So, give context about like why you're having a conversation with them. Next, start to build a relationship or continue to build a relationship if you already know them a little bit. It's maybe then continuing to build that relationship. So just, checking in about things like how is school going, how are your classes going. Sometimes we don't always get a chance to know that information because maybe we're really focused on GSA while we're in GSA and maybe we want to leave the classroom stuff outside. And so this would be a really good opportunity just to kind of listen how they're doing with their classes, how school is going, all of that really great stuff. How did they hear about the GSA club? Maybe you don't know that yet, and it would be a really great opportunity to see how did they get connected with GSA. Maybe it was during Club Rush, maybe they heard it over the announcements, maybe a friend invited them. So just kind of really getting to know kind of their experience and how they got connected to the club. and then, what interests them about GSA, and, what are some problems that they see are still affecting LGBTQ folks in the school or maybe in the local community. Um, you know, Sometimes maybe folks see things differently, and it's always great to kind of listen and hear those different experiences from folks. Um, and, after these are just some examples of questions that you can ask. You can come up with your own in terms of how you want to build relationships amongst your members, but that would be the second part to kind of a one-one. And then the agitate and inspire component, right? Spark their passion for the club. If they're already passionate, but you want to, spark some more interest within the club, maybe share a little bit more about what brought you as the person who's connecting with them into the group. What sparked that energy to want to change the experiences of LGBT youth at your school. And so making sure that you get a chance to share that with them. Maybe you saw that there was a need to do, campaigns around inclusive sexual health education, and you wanted to push for that. And that's what sparked your energy to be a part of the club. And you yourself as a leader actually see the vision and the solution, which could be things like running a campaign, right? So if you present those ideas, it might continue to spark that interest of like, okay, there's an issue on our campus and our leader is interested and has an understanding of what potential solutions that might look like, right? And then, right, if you know that there is something that they can get involved with, you can build up to maybe asking them to support you in that idea. So it might be like, continue to come back to GSA so that we can push for that particular campaign. And if it's not, around a particular campaign, maybe you just want to have folks continue to show up and build those relationships with folks. So the ask is around, can you show up to or continue to show up to our meeting? Can you show up to an action if you're leading a campaign, right? So in this example, if it's around inclusive sex ed, maybe you're going to have meetings with school board members soon, and you want to build up to having more of your members show up and start to spark that interest. And so really the one-on-ones would help you get to that place. And then plan for a follow-up, right? If you don't already have their contact information, making sure that you get their contact information, or just making sure that you have the correct info. So that would be, one of the last things that you would do in a one-on-one. And then, as you finish up, just affirm the folks that you're talking to. As you had a chance to kind of build relationship, you sparked their interest, presented, potential solution, you got a commitment from them to continue to show up to a meeting or maybe to show up to an action. You want to affirm everything that you talked about within this conversation and affirm their experiences, affirm, that you are going to continue within the club. And then, talk about some next steps. If it's just showing up to another meeting, making sure that you all can commit to each other. Maybe you want to hold another one-on-one to see if, they got interested in leading a different type of campaign, or are really interested in addressing the issues, and are also maybe interested in leading the group next year. The one-on-ones are really important in that piece, so you can continue to build that leadership amongst your club. So again, community building level 3, one-on-ones. These are really, really important so that we can continue to build leaders within your GSA. And so especially if you are maybe about to graduate, these would be really important to hold. Sometimes maybe holding them in the second semester would be good, just to see who would be interested. If you already have maybe some sort of like mentorship, femtorship program within your GSA, where maybe older GSA members, mentor younger GSA members, great, continue to do that. If it's something you haven't done before, maybe it's something you can explore as well, so you can continue to build kind of leaders within your group and continue to build that trust within your group as well. So again, community building level 3, which is our one-on-ones. So that concludes our part 1 of this video. If folks would like any training docs or resources, you can definitely check out our presentations on our virtual GSA resources page on our website listed here. And then for facilitation notes of this training, you can email us at california@gsanetwork.org. For updates and support, and if you are a GSA youth advisor, make sure you can connect with a regional organizer to try to further explore some of the tools that we shared within the training video. And you can find a local partner at GSANetwork.org/national. We also definitely recommend folks signing up for our new text message update system. All you have to do is text GSAs for Justice to 52886, and you can receive text message news and updates from us. You can follow us, GSA Network, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for all national news, and then at GSA Network CA on Facebook and Twitter for our California news and updates. Discord. We are launching a new Discord server. If you are a student or an advisor, our first Discord channel will open up on November 18th. And then the one following will open up on December 7th for students, and for advisors, December 6th. All of them will be from 5 to 6 Pacific Standard Time. For now, this is for California youth. And so we are focusing on our California GSAs at the moment with our Discord server. All you have to do is register, and we'll send you all the information you need to get going on our Discord server. Again, for California GSA members, we have a California membership meeting coming up on December 2nd from 5 to 7 p.m. If you register and attend, you will receive a small GSA gift. To register, all you have to go to is gsanetwork.org/CA, so we can get all that information from you so you can attend our California membership meeting. And that concludes part 1. Make sure you check out part 2 of 3, where we'll do some practice. We'll practice storytelling through residence building as a tool to center the most marginalized within our community. And thank you so much. That concludes part 1.